Now, the last thing that they had in common, which was the fourth thing, was that when these people reinvented themselves, they spent long moments where they lost track of time and space. In other words, they became so involved with what they were thinking about, so immersed in who they were becoming, that when they opened their eyes, or when they turned on the light in the room, or when they lifted their blindfolds up, it seemed like 5 minutes to them, but actually an hour and a half or 2 hours went by. And they were literally becoming so immersed in what they were thinking about that they lost track of time and space. They lost track of the feedback that takes place between the body and the brain. They lost track of the feedback that the brain always perceives in its environment. And they lost track of time. Now, the brain processes about 400 billion bits of information every single second. But we're only conscious of about 2,000 of those 400 billion bits. Now, those 2,000 bits of information in reference to where our awareness exists only has to do with three things. It has to do with our feedback from the body, feedback from the environment, and our feedback in reference to time. You know, does your back hurt? Are you hungry? Do you have a headache? Are you thirsty? Are you tired? Is it too cold? Is it too warm? Do you like the way it smells in the environment? How long is it going to take before the next experience happens? Our brain and our awareness is immersed in those particular things. And when our brain is immersed in those particular things, even though the brain is processing 400 billion bits of information, we keep our awareness on only 2,000 of those 400 billion bits. And it has to do with the body, the environment, and time. These people who had spontaneous remissions, they moved their awareness from those particular things to those other bits of information. And when they did that, we're beginning to learn from a scientific standpoint is that's the moment that the brain begins to pattern new circuits and new connections. So this began an interesting study for me because I wanted to know, based on these four things, what was happening in the brain to determine what was happening in these people's physical bodies. Could it be that they changed their mind, and by changing their mind, it had a physiological effect in their body? Now, some of these people weren't vegetarians. They didn't do crystals. They didn't fast. They didn't do any alternative therapies. All they did was they changed their mind. And by changing their mind, it produced some measurable results in their life. So I began this process of understanding how the brain makes new circuits and makes new connections.